Yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting to see what's going to come out of all of this stuff here. But now moving into our game picks of the week. So a little bit of a different thing than what we're doing now. Obviously, we're still going to pick the teams that we think are just genuinely going to win the game. Technically, that's called the money line. And then we're also going to pick the spreads of the week as well. So as we get into game number one this week, it is your Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Cleveland Browns. Both teams are 6-3. The Browns at home are 4-1, and the Pittsburgh Steelers on the away side are 2-1. Obviously, these two teams faced off earlier in the year, and it was a bloodbath.
Yeah, I expect it to be much the same this week. There's a few wrinkles in there because, no Deshaun Watson. He is also done for the season. And so, can't remember what his name is. Their rookie quarterback is going to be taking the place, which surprised me. I really thought they would roll with PJ Walker with how well he was performing.
As did I.
Um, so it's a little strange that they would opt to put a rookie in there against TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and this Pittsburgh Steelers defense who could just, ultimately destroy another rookie. Outside of CJ Stroud, and no rookies have really fared well against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense.
Nope.
Um,
But this
and I
Browns
expect,
defense is also.
yes, yeah, the Browns defense is good, and that's what I expect. I expect this to be a defensive battle. Um, we've seen some good things from Pittsburgh in the last couple weeks. I don't know if it's Matt Canada necessarily, but having him down on the field has definitely helped. It's allowing the players to discuss with him during the defensive drives what they're seeing on the field and what they think needs to happen. And then moving Broderick Jones into that right tackle position has just been lights out. The running game is finally moving. We had 200 yards on the ground last week. Jaylen Warren had his first 100-yard rushing game. Uh, uh, they need to roll with that. You need to leave Broderick Jones at that right tackle for the remainder of this year. Worry about whether you're moving him back to left tackle next year, as long as everybody else stays healthy on the line. But Broderick Jones said it himself. He's a Georgia boy. They were built to run, to open up holes for the run game, and he showed it last week. He opened up so many holes for Najee Harris, and it was fun to watch finally. The passing game is still eh. I'm starting to wonder if maybe George Pickens is a bit of a talker in the locker room and causing some animosity and some problems. So I'm not too keen there. But ultimately, if the Steelers can keep this a one-score game, we've seen it all year. I have no doubts that they're going to win it.
So for money line, obviously, I have a feeling that you are going to choose the
I am
Pittsburgh Steelers.
picking the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yes.
So for myself, looking at this game, you know, both teams have outstanding defenses, but both teams have been really struggling on offense. Now, if you were to ask me which offense I have more faith in this year, it's the Cleveland Browns. Because I've been saying it all year long. I don't trust Kenny Pickett. I don't
Mm-hmm.
trust Matt Canada. And it's going to be one of those games where I'm really realistically trending towards the defensive side of things, and the Browns have been really, really good this year. But with that being said, I just have this feeling that the Steelers are going to be able to pull this one out. And, I'm not super comfortable or confident in it, but it's one of those things here at the moment. That's where I feel a little bit stronger. I feel like this is going to be a very, very low scoring game. I think this is probably going to be a pretty bad game to watch, unfortunately, just because like you know me, I love watching defensive football, but this is going to be two defenses going up against two bad offenses, and it's just going to be like someone move the ball, please. You know, for me, and another thing that we are also going to do in this section is talk about the spread as well for all of our betting fans out there. In the point spread in this game, it is currently sitting at least on ESPN, minus 2.5. And for myself personally, I am going to take the Steelers on this one. I think obviously the Steelers are going to win. The Browns are sitting at minus 2.5. So, yeah, if I think the Steelers are going to win, the Steelers are going to win the spread in there. And I'm, just going to jump in there and assume that you are also going to be taking that as well.
Well, yeah, that's what it's got to be. I wasn't looking at ESPN. I was looking on the betting app that I use, and they've got it at 1.5. And I do think this will probably come down to a 1 or 2 point difference this game. It'll likely be decided on a field goal at the end. I do expect to see, maybe some blocked extra points because both of the special teams have been good here as well. But yeah, ultimately the reason I sided Steelers is the turnover differential is so much better for the Steelers than it is for the Browns. Yes, the Browns defense is good at stopping the other teams, but they haven't been good at turning the ball over necessarily.
Yeah.
And that is where the Steelers have been very good.
Now moving over to the second game that we are going to discuss here, and we'll go from your team. Now we go to my team, and the Chicago Bears taking on the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions currently sitting at 7-2 with a home record of 3-1, and the Bears sitting at 3-7 with an away record of 1-4. It's very weird for me to say this, but the Lions are a phenomenal team. They're one of the best teams in the NFC. Not just the NFC North, but the NFC in its entirety. And after years of just watching this team be down in the dumps and being terrible and bad and awful, they're really good. They are a fun team to watch. They're just a team that is just kind of built for success right now. They've had two weird losses, one to the Ravens where they had no offense going, and then that Seattle overtime loss week 2. But pretty much every other game other than that, they have been money. They have been lights out. But for me,
last week was especially entertaining as well, up against the Chargers. Big shootout between the two of them.
Yeah, and you know what? We kind of haven't really seen this Lions team really be in some of those really, really intense shootouts, and they were able to ultimately get that one fairly well. And for me in this one, I'm going to pick the money line for the Lions. That's going to be my pick. But then taking a look at the spread, it is currently sitting at 7.5 in favor of the Lions. So minus 7.5. I'm actually going to take the Bears in the spread in this one. I think this game is ultimately going to be a little bit closer than what we actually think it's going to be. And for the Lions to win by 8 points, I think they're still going to win, and I think they're going to win by 6, but I don't think they're going to win by 8. So that is why I have the Bears on the spread, and that's what I'm going to choose.
Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, money line, I'm the same way. I 100% I'm going Lions. There's no reason to think that the Bears could beat them at this point in the season. Last I heard, Justin Fields is going to be back.
100%.
But he doesn't have...
100% back.
100% back, but not 100% healthy. He's still having some grip issues with that thumb, from what I've heard. I mean, dislocated thumb is not going to heal in 4 weeks. That doesn't happen.
He is no injury designation this week, so he's 100% to go.
I don't trust that myself. I don't see how a guy with a dislocated thumb is going to be able to grip that ball. So I expect to see some errant passes from him, and I am going to take the Lions in the spread here because I think we're going to see a few turnovers by the Bears, which will allow the Lions to run up the score a bit. I expect them to win probably by 9 to 12 points.
Yeah, this is one of those games where for me it's easy, but I Justin Fields, I don't think they would allow him to play if he wasn't able to throw the ball with full confidence. Like, I thought he was going to be back in that Panthers game, and they were saying he was really close. And just with this mini bye week, because they played last Thursday, or not this last Thursday, but the Thursday beforehand. So they've had a long time for him to get fully healthy, and so that's why I trust that a little bit more.
That's fair. I just don't have a whole lot of faith in that, and I think they would hurry him back a little bit more if he wasn't quite at 100%, because Tyson Bagent, while he looked okay in his first couple of starts, it's been looking worse each week. And so I think they're keen to get Fields back out there. I don't I don't have faith that he's 100%. And I want to just mention as a caveat, anybody watching, like, do, don't trust me on the money on the
On the
spreads.
spread.
I do not take spreads because I am terrible at picking spreads. So
Yeah.
just keep that in mind if you're following our advice or anything. Don't trust me on spread.
I am a little bit more confident on the spread.
Yeah.
Obviously, when we were trying to come up with some extra content for here, I was going through a little bit more explanations for you on the spread, and I gave
Yeah.
you kind of the basics of it. Obviously, as a few more weeks will go by, you'll start to understand a little bit more. But now, moving over to our next game, which is another NFC North game. This time, it is the Chargers taking on the Packers, and the Chargers are currently sitting at -3. And you know what? I'll quickly go over the minus and plus just for our viewers. So if a team, for instance, like the Chargers, is sitting at -3, for them to win on the spread, they have to win by 4 points. And if they are, let's say, 3.5, you still have to win by 5 points. So yeah. No, if you're at 3, you have to win by 3, but if you're at 3.5, you have to win by 4. That's the way it is for the spread. But if you are plus, then if you, like, for instance, the Packers, they're +3 in this game. If they win the game, then they ultimately win the spread. But are if they lose the game but they're 3 points or under, they also win the spread. So that's the way that that betting system kind of works. I'm doing a very kind of butchered down version of it, but the grand scheme of things, that's kind of the, meat and potatoes of it. But Chargers and Packers. Chargers currently at home 3-6, 2-2 at home. Chargers 4-5, 2-2 away. So this is going to be an interesting battle, to say the least. Two teams that have drastically underperformed from what they were expected to be this year. If you ask me, I kind of figured that the Packers would be like this. They gave me a little fright there earlier in the year, but now they're kind of getting back to what at least I thought the potential for this team was going to be. For me, I think the Chargers ultimately are going to win this game, and for me, I trust the Chargers a hell of a lot more than I do the Packers. I don't think Jordan Love is a good quarterback, but the problem with the Chargers is that they allow teams to stay really, really close in these games. With the Packers being at home, I think the Chargers are going to win, but it's going to be close enough that I'm actually going to choose the Packers on the spread here, because I think that they're probably only going to lose by a last second field goal type situation, because Brandon Staley, he's a gambler, and he's
Yep.
not a very good one, unfortunately, and he allows teams to be a lot better than what they are.
Yeah, and I mean we saw it last week. The Chargers are really good at putting up points and keeping pace with teams, and so I don't have any worries there. But we saw from the Packers that they also are good at keeping up with another team as they're scoring, and so I do think the Packers will be able to hang around in this. Um, Ultimately, though, the Chargers just have too many weapons on offense, and so I do think they will ultimately take the win. I mean, you got Eckler, you got Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert has looked phenomenal since he's healed up that hand completely, and so he's doing much better now. But I do have to agree. I think it'll be very close. So I think the Packers likely will make the spread in this one, but for straight up money line, I'm going with the Chargers.
Yeah, so you and I are pretty much on agreement for that one. Chargers money line spread for the Packers. It's going to be a really weird game, just because, kind of like what I was saying, those Packers, man, or those Chargers, Brandon Staley, I was kind of calling for him at the end of last year to ultimately potentially be moved on from the Chargers in favor
Yeah.
of a guy potentially like Sean Payton, who was available, but they elected to stay with Brandon Staley, and that's kind of the situation that this team has just kind of had to deal with this year. But now moving over to our next game of the week, and that's going to be the Miami Dolphins taking on the Las Vegas Raiders. Miami Dolphins sitting at a record of 6-3, 4-0 at home. The Raiders coming in with a record of 5-5, which is shocking to say the least, and an away record of 1-4. Sterling, I'll let you take this one here to start us off.
Yeah, I mean the Raiders have had a bit of a resurgence since, dismantling the front office. I don't expect that to maintain itself, um, especially this week. The Dolphins have been one of the best teams at home lately. It in part due to that sideline advantage they have in their home games. And so I do expect them to be forcing the Raiders to wear those black jerseys. It'll likely be sunny and hot. I think the Dolphins will run away with this game. I don't think it's going to be quite as big of a blowout as they managed to put up against the Broncos, but I do expect them to win very easily and by a lot of points.
So you're taking both the Dolphins money line and spread. The spread is minus 13.5, so they have to win by 2
Two
touchdowns or
touchdowns.
more.
Yeah, I do think they will win by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think the Raiders are better since they fired everyone. Basically ever since they got rid of all the Patriots that were there, like from the management side to the coaching side, it was like, we don't want the Patriots way, please leave.
Even down to the quarterback side, Jimmy Garoppolo.
Benched, yep. Aiden
Yeah.
O'Connell. I do think the Dolphins are going to win this game. I think they have struggled against teams that have above 500 records. Currently, the Raiders are sitting at that exact 500, but I think they're just going to be too good. But for me, the 14 touchdown or the 14-point difference that they're going to have to get to win this game, it's a little bit worrisome for me. Those types of games, again, the 70-20 game against the Broncos, I think that's just one of those ones where you don't really see that too often.
No.
And with the Raiders, they have been playing a lot better these last 2 weeks ever since moving on from McDaniels. So for me, I think the Raiders are going to lose. I think they're probably going to lose by about 13 points, but I don't think it's going to be that full 14 that we're expecting. So for me, I'm having to take the spread for the Raiders, and they're actually going to get this minus 13 or this plus 13.5. I think so for me, that's where it kind of ultimately lands. And yeah, but then again, that advantage for Miami on their sideline is going to be massive, to say the least.
Well, and I think it's just going to come down to that the Raiders are going to be playing from behind a lot more this game, and likely early. I think the Dolphins will get out to an early lead, likely 10 or more points, which means the Raiders are going to have to rely more on Aiden O'Connell than Josh Jacobs.
This is true.
If this was close enough for them to be running the ball with Josh Jacobs a whole bunch, then yeah, I think they'd be able to hang, but I think it's just going to get out of hand quickly, and when you got to rely on Aiden O'Connell to pass it a whole bunch, I think we're going to start seeing some of those flaws show.
For sure. Now moving over to our next game, and this is one of those games where I think neither of us particularly care to watch, where that is the Washington Commanders taking on the New York Giants. Commanders sitting at 4-6, 1-3 at home, and the Giants at 2-8, and the record of 1-5 away. Sterling, what's your thoughts, buddy?
Yeah, this is going to be an ugly game. I was watching a discussion / argument between a Giants fan and a Commanders fan at work this week, and it was entertaining to say the least because, they're both arguing why their teams are going to win, and I'm sitting there going, it doesn't matter which one of your teams win, you're both trash right now. I guess you're just playing for bragging rights at this point. Though a good point was brought up. The Commanders have struggled against the Giants. They have not been able to win. I think it's been 6 games in a row now that the Giants have beat the Commanders. So I think this game will ultimately end up being closer than what people think. And so I don't know. It was a tough one to pick. The offense, Sam Howell for the Commanders, it sounds like they are putting their faith in him that he's going to be the quarterback going forward, but their defense has been dismantled at the trade deadline, and it has not looked good. And so I do think we will see the Commanders win this game, but I think the Giants will be able to keep it close enough to beat the spread, because I believe the spread is it 6.5?
It is 8.5.
8.5.
So the
Yeah,
Commanders are going to have to win by 9.
yeah, and I don't see the Commanders winning by more than a touchdown. And so I do think that the Giants will be able to keep it close. Neither team can score very much, and both defenses have been lackluster. This is going to be like that Browns-Steelers game, but worse because we don't even have good defenses to watch. And so that's my thought is Commanders money line, and Giants will beat the spread.
So for me in this one, I have the Commanders on the money line, but I also have the Commanders beating the spread as well. I think the Giants right now are probably the second worst team in football. The only reason that they're not considered the worst team in football is because the Carolina Panthers somehow exist. And with Danny DeVito's nephew, son, I don't even know the dude's first name. I think it's Tommy DeVito. He is horrible at quarterback. And I don't know if the Giants are genuinely going to be able to score points in this game. The Commanders, I have faith that they're going to be able to score points. Sam Howell, if given enough time from his offensive line, which doesn't happen a lot because he's the most sacked quarterback in the NFL right now, if he's able to just get that little bit of extra time, which I think he's ultimately going to be able to do against this Giants defense, he's shown that he can start to torch the other team. And we've seen him put up big numbers and have big games. He has the weapons there for him. And Scary Terry and Juwan Dotson is all starting to show a little bit, and they have a better run game, in my opinion. I think the Commanders, they run away with this one because I just don't think the Giants. I think the Giants, they have already, they're not just one foot in the grave, they're buried, and they're kind of just sitting there going like, yeah, let the oxygen run out. I think their season
they're in there just pulling dirt down on top of themselves.
Exactly. So for me, that's...
And let's be real, that kind of started when they gave Daniel Jones that contract.
Without a doubt. And people were saying to me, no, it was a good contract. I was like, if you're saying that's a good contract, have fun. But
yeah, and DeMarcus Russell was a good draft pick 20 years ago.
Oh fuck! It really is almost 20 years ago that DeMarcus Russell was drafted to the Raiders, because he was drafted 07? Yeah, 07 he was, and God. But regardless, moving forward, we now have what shouldn't really be much of a competition, but since it holds the Cowboys in it, it's actually somehow probably gonna be a competition because that's just the way that they like to play. But we have the Cowboys going into Carolina to take on the Panthers. The Panthers sit with a record of 1-8. Sounds about right. Yep. And 1-3 at home. Cowboys come in with a record of 6-3 and an away record of 2-3. For me, I'm just gonna instantly throw the money line and my pick on the Cowboys. I don't think the Panthers are anything. They struggled against a Bears team that had no offense. Like Tyson Bagent, yeah, he got he did enough to get that win, but realistically wasn't much. And they couldn't do anything against that Bears defense. And if the Bears defense, who has shown improvement every single week, but is still a plus, or is still one of the top 25 defenses in the NFL, and they're closer to 25 than they are to 1, because they're probably, in my opinion, the 25th or even worse defense in the NFL, and the Panthers couldn't even score a touchdown on them. Yeah. Good luck scoring against this Cowboys defense. And so with the current spread being at -10.5 for the Cowboys, I am also taking the spread line for the Cowboys, just because I have not been impressed with Bryce Young. He was not my number one quarterback coming out, and the weapons that they have around him are not good enough. Their O-line isn't good enough. I honestly genuinely think that the Panthers might have a goose egg on the scoreboard in this game.
Yeah, I think you might be right. And for that reason, I'm totally agreeing. You know, Cowboys money line, Cowboys spread, like it should be an easy win for them. You know, they've been kind of like the Dolphins of the NFC this year. They're pretty good against losing record teams, but when they go up against a good team, that's when we see the flaws start to show in this Cowboys. And so this should be an easy game for the Cowboys going forward. Though I mean, they do play on Thursday next week, I do believe.
It could
And
potentially
so
be one of those trap game
it could
situations.
be a
Yeah.
trap game for them for sure, but I don't. Even if they fall into that trap, I see the Panthers finding a way to shoot themselves in the foot. They're not going to be able to keep this within a touchdown so they can win it, or within a field goal so they can win it at the last second. It's not happening. Cowboys all the way with this one.
Yeah, for me, even if this is one of those trap games, it's like, man, the Panthers just do not know how to win.
No.
But moving forward, our next game, which should be a better game, where we have the Texans taking on the Jaguars. The Jaguars sitting at 6-3 and a home record of 2-3, and the Titans sitting at a record of 3-6 and an away record of 0-5. So Titans still looking for that first away win, and the Jags coming off of an absolute beatdown last week against the 49ers, where they could do nothing. I think this week the Titans are not going to be much of anything to this Jaguars team. They're going to look at that and go, okay, we just got absolutely beat down last week by a team that we need to try to hold a benchmark to moving forward. And the spread in this one is -6.5 for the Jags. I think they easily cover that. I do not think this Titans team, who has shown improvement the last couple of weeks, I do not think they're going to get anywhere close to this Jags team. They're going to be playing pissed off and angry. And plus, with this Titans team, with that goose egg for a win in terms of playing on the road, I think that one just continues.
Yeah, and I mean that was a tough one for the Jags last week. They had the bye week to prepare, just like the 49ers did. You know, so it just obvious that the 49ers were better prepared for that. And I think what happened was they managed to get out by a whole bunch early on, and the Jags went completely away from their game plan. They didn't use Travis Etienne at all after that. It was all Trevor Lawrence trying to throw it, and that was the mistake they ultimately made. They should have stuck with their game plan and tried to just
play their
claw their way
football.
back into it slowly rather than try and get a big chunk play each time, because that ultimately hurt them in the long run. So yeah, I do think they go back to more their style of play this week. Easier team with the Titans. That being said, this AFC South division has been a little back and forth. There's been some competition between these teams, so the Titans might be able to surprise them early on, but I do think the Jags will win and likely cover the spread as well.
Yeah, so obviously, just remembering what I said for the spread, it was -6.5. So Jags are going to have to win by a touchdown, which I think ultimately is probably going to be the case. So again, another situation where you and I are completely in agreement on both everything right there. But I struggle with that Titans team on the road. They've looked better, and I just don't think they're quite there yet. But now going into a game that personally I am really, really excited to watch, where we have the Cardinals taking on the Texans, and initially saying that phrase out loud, I'm excited to watch the Cardinals and the Texans. If I would have said that, or if you would have told me at the beginning of the year I would be saying that phrase, I probably would have slapped you and been like, stop lying, stop putting words in my mouth. But I am really excited about this game because you have the Texans, who have shown so much life this year, and CJ Stroud, without a doubt, is currently offensive rookie of the year. I don't even think it's close with anyone else. Like, there was times where he was in the conversation for MVP. Don't think that's going to be the case, but he has been outstanding this year. And you know what? The Cardinals, they've been a team that has fought this season. And now that they have Kyler Murray back, they looked pretty good last week. And I think the Cardinals, and Kyler Murray has been hearing it all year long, that the Cardinals are going to be so bad they're going to have the first overall pick. They're going to draft a quarterback to replace Kyler Murray. I think Kyler Murray, he's going to walk out for the rest of the season and go, I don't care the new Call of Duty is out. I'm not going to do that. This is my team, and I'm going to win enough games to the point where you're not going to be in a position to draft a quarterback. You're going to have to be in a position to get me help. And unfortunately, I still think the Texans are going to win this particular game. I just think they have been so good. But with the spread in this one being at -6 for Houston, I think the Cardinals are actually going to take the spread in this one. They're going to keep it close. Kyler Murray is going to have himself a really good game, and this is going to be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, I was quite surprised actually last week seeing Kyler Murray. I didn't think he looked like he didn't miss a beat, and that's saying something after an ACL injury on a mobile quarterback. I did not expect him to be able to run around in the backfield like he used to do, and he was doing it. And so that bodes well for the Cardinals. They also have James Conner back now, which really solidifies their running game. This is the Cardinals team that they wanted at the start of the season. And so they finally might be able to start stringing some drives together. You know, Hollywood Brown's going to be able to finally be getting a whole bunch of receptions, some good yards. Not to say Josh Dobbs wasn't providing him the ball, but there just wasn't enough extra dimensions in there with the mobility of Kyler Murray and having James Conner there. So I agree. I think they're going to be able to hang with the Texans, but CJ Stroud and Dalton Schultz, like they've all been just looking this Texans team. We didn't expect it from them. You know, they went out there and they made a big splash in the draft, and it has paid off for them. I'm sure as a Bears fan, you're looking at this and going, God, I hope my team can do this next year.
Yeah.
So
later
yeah, I
in a
do think.
segment later, we'll definitely be having some of
Oh
those
yeah, we will.
discussions. But yeah, so
But
I'm assuming you're
I
taking money line Texans.
yeah, moneyline Texans, and I do think the Cardinals will be able to beat the spread. I think they'll be able to keep it close enough in this one for sure.
Yeah, for me, when I initially looked at this game, I was kind of like, I started to get kind of giddy looking at it, going like, oh man, this is gonna be a really, really fun game to watch, and it should be one of those ones where it is
Hmm.
like for an
This is
11 o'clock game, this is probably the game to watch. Which whoever thought that
hmm
this would have been the game to watch at the 11 o'clock window blows my mind. Can't really, really think about it
right.
that too much, but man,
I
oh
mean,
man.
obviously, I won't be watching it because my Steelers play at 11.
Oh no, and I
But
won't be watching it either.
this this will likely be the first game I look at tomorrow morning when I'm building a same game parlay, because I do expect it to be a statistical monster for both quarterbacks, for the receivers, for the running backs. It's going to be a fun game to be able to throw a whole bunch of guys into a same game parlay and possibly build a nice pot.
Yeah. So now moving over to one of our first 2 o'clock games where we have the Buccaneers taking on the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers sitting at a record of 6-3 with a home record of 3-1. The Buccaneers 4-5 and an away record of 2-2. And taking a look here at the spread for this game, it is -12 for the San Francisco 49ers. Sterling, I'll let you take away here.
Yeah, we mentioned it briefly with the Cowboys game earlier, but this is the one I really wanted to bring it up. Um, this is a big trap game for the 49ers. They had a huge win last week coming off their bye, and they're playing from behind trying to catch the Seahawks now in this NFC West division. They haven't played each other yet this year, and they have two games still coming up. The first one is on Thursday in prime time on Thanksgiving. And so I'm really concerned that the 49ers may be looking ahead too much at this Seahawks game coming up on Thursday and may underestimate Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, and this Buccaneers team. I think we might see an upset here. It, it's hard for me to pick it that way. So just with how good they played and the fact that the 49ers are healthy, I am going to take the 49ers money line. That spread is a little too steep for me, though, so I do think the Buccaneers will keep it close and likely beat the spread. But if you're looking for a game to bust and a team to have a surprise loss, this could be the one for you to go for. And I could see the Bucks possibly winning this game. But I am going to pick the 49ers just because they looked too good last week. As long as they are 100% healthy, they got Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, CMC, they're good.
Yeah.
As soon as one of those guys goes down, though, that team falls apart.
Yeah, I have the exact same picks as you. I have moneyline 49ers and spread for the Buccaneers. The thing is with this 49ers team, they win games and they win them convincingly, but it doesn't necessarily show up that way on the scoreboard. They beat teams that they're supposed to beat, and I think they are supposed to beat this Buccaneers squad, and their defense when they got obviously, Chase Young, that just instantly brought that defense back to life and kind of what we thought it should be. But this Buccaneers team, I think they're gonna do enough to kind of keep it close. Obviously that 12-point difference for me is just a little too rich for my blood. I think the 49ers will probably win by 10, but I don't think they're going to be able to get that full 12 points just to be able to get it. And like I said, for me, it's just a little too rich for my blood in that particular occasion. But when it comes to the 49ers, I think last week was them going, all right, everyone, listen up. We're back. And I think this is kind of one of those almost like villain arc moments for them where they're like, okay, we played around for the last couple of weeks. We had some injuries. We're healthy. Get ready. And
that is the key for this 49ers team, though, is healthy. Like we've seen it one missing piece on that offense, and they just cannot seem to put up the same amount of points. They lose that one dimension, and they fall apart. So I agree. The addition of Chase Young is important for this defense. It takes some of the pressure off of Bosa, and so maybe that helps them hang in some of these games when the injuries start to add up for them again. Because I do think it's going to start again at some point. At some point, one of these guys is gonna go down with a, high ankle sprain or something. I mean, we haven't seen CMC get hurt other than that mild oblique strain this year, but even then, that caused them some problems. So we'll see what happens going forward for them for the coming weeks.
yeah, it is going to be really, really interesting to say the least. But now moving forward, we have the Jets taking on the Buffalo Bills. This was a rematch from week 1 where the Bills got shocked by the Jets, and the Jets were able to win this one. But the Bills at home sitting at a record that I think shocks us all at this point at 5-5 with a home record of 4-2. The Jets at 4-5 with an away record of 2-2. This is gonna be a really tough. This was a tough game for me, and the reason being is because the Bills, and you've said it before, this Bills team, Josh Allen, he plays down to whatever level the quarterback that he's playing. Sometimes he can play up to the quarterback that he's playing, but he often goes down with the competition. And Zach Wilson isn't necessarily a superstar quarterback. This Bills team, man, they just have not figured it out. Obviously, they fired their offensive coordinator, which sparked all the memes for both of our teams going, how come we can't fire ours, especially yours?
Yep.
This was a really, really tough game for me to pick. I think the Bills are ultimately going to win this one. At home, they're just a really tough team, but for me, in the spread, and again, taking a look here at the spread in this one, it's -7 for the Bills over the Jets. I don't think that the Bills are going to be able to pull away a full touchdown lead over this Jets team. This Jets defense is very, very good, and this Jets offense just kind of just does enough to keep up with most teams. And with this being a divisional battle, I think it's going to be a really, really close game that I ultimately think that the Jets will win on the spread, but the Bills will ultimately win the game, and I think it's probably going to be a last-second field goal that ultimately gets it done.
Yeah, this was a really hard game to pick. I mean, that Ken Dorsey firing was, in my opinion, a huge mistake. He
Out
has
of left
not,
field.
right? He has not been the problem. It's been Josh Allen making poor decisions that have been
Thrown to the
costing
opposite team.
games, you know? And so this was a big mistake, I think, and they could feel it this week. This was a tough one for me to pick. Um, I do agree. I am going to go Bills just because it is in Buffalo. Bills Mafia is going to be rabid, um, but it's going to be close. I don't think we're going to see much out of Stefan Diggs. We're going to see Sauce Gardner shut him down. That's going to happen, and so it's going to fall to Gabe Davis. Is it going to be an on week or an off week for him? And he's up and down every week. We don't know what we're getting. So ultimately, it's going to fall to Dalton Kincaid and James Cook. And these are going to be the guys that have to win the game because Josh Allen has shown that he's just not got it this year. He doesn't have that factor where he can win the game for the team right now. And so he's going to have to lean on those supporting players and hope that they can, make some plays for him so they can win this game. But yeah, Bills win the game, but the Jets keep it very close and likely will lose on a missed field goal at the end.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those really tough games. But moving forward to an NFC West battle where we have the Seahawks going into LA to take on the Rams. Rams with a record of 3-6, 1-3 at home, and the Seahawks 6-3, 2-4 on the road. Taking a look here at the spread, it is currently -1 in favor of the Rams, which I was a little bit shocked to see because this Seahawks team, I feel like we were looking at them this year saying we're going to talk about this team a lot, but it also feels like we haven't talked about them at all. Geno Smith has not been the same quarterback that he was last year. And we thought this wide receiver trio that they have there of Smith and Jigba, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett was going to set the league on storm and set it on fire. Kind of has been good, but hasn't been elite and stellar. This was a really interesting game for me because the fact that the Rams are favored in this one, to me, is really, really shocking. I have the Seahawks both winning money line and on the spread. Again, it's at -1. The Rams did get that shocking win week 1 against the Seahawks, but I don't think this team is good enough where they are right now to do it again.
Yeah, I disagree. Um, I think the Seahawks do fall to the trap game here. I think they're looking ahead to the 49ers going, we need to worry about them on Thursday. And the Rams are getting Matt Stafford back this week. I think they will pull out the win and likely beat the spread as well in this one. It's been a couple weeks since we've seen the Cooper Kupp Puka Nacua tandem, and I think they're going to go off this week against the Seahawks team at home. So I had the Seahawks early on, but ultimately with Matthew Stafford coming back, I do think the Rams are going to be able to shock the Seahawks again because the Hawks are going to be too busy looking forward to the 49ers. 2 matchups coming up. They've got the lead in the division. They're looking at that beast breathing down their neck. And they're going to forget about the Rams and the fact that they beat them in week 1.
So now moving over to our next our Sunday night game where we have the Vikings taking on the Broncos. The Broncos at 4-5, 2-3 at home. Vikings at 6-4 and 4-1 on the road. Taking a look here at the spread, it has the Broncos sitting at -2.5, which
What?
Yeah. So, obviously,
Somebody was smoking crack when they came up with that.
someone in the state of Colorado where marijuana is legal, they must have looked at that and giggled and went, "Let's throw this one out there." The Broncos have
Smoking
looked
Christmas snow.
the Broncos have looked a lot better so far this year. They have, but the Vikings, man, they are going out there and they are finding ways to win. I have the Vikings winning this game against the Broncos. Josh Dobbs, the last 2 weeks, has looked good, man. And obviously, by me choosing the Vikings on the money line, I also have them on the spread. When I saw that they had the Broncos at minus 2.5, I was like, what? Really?
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, I get that the Broncos are at home, and it's very hard to play in Denver. But the Vikings are a much better team than the Broncos, and the Broncos have looked better,
Mm-hmm.
but they're the Broncos this year, man. Like, I just can't trust them to actually win this game. And plus, the Vikings
Yeah,
have
and I
been
mean,
so good on the road, 4-1.
yes, and you know what? I said it in our trade deadline episode when we talked about it, and I said Josh Dobbs is going to come in here and surprise some people in Minnesota, and he's done it. You know, he had to come in that first game without knowing the playbook, and he managed to pull a win out of his ass. And then last week, he looked lights out. He looked, you know, almost like Kyler Murray-esque, the way he was running around in the backfield, making plays happen, you know, looking off guys in the secondary. And he may have Justin Jefferson back, which, like, I'm really curious to see what he's going to be able to do when he has the best wide receiver in the league. You know,
So,
we saw what
pardon
he
me,
could.
I just need to interrupt real quick. As I
Yep.
was looking at the spread, because I needed to make sure that I actually had, it wasn't the Vikings and it was indeed the Broncos. Since I added this list this morning where the Broncos were minus 2.5, they're now minus 3.
So the odds are going up for the Broncos.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
So please continue. I just needed to get that one out there.
That's insane. You know. But like we've seen what Josh Dobbs was able to do last week. He's getting TJ Hawkinson involved. He's making Jordan Addison look good. Not that Jordan Addison is not good. He is a phenomenal receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Have Justin Jefferson back. This Vikings team, they've won what, 4 in a row now? They're
looking good.
playoff bound at this point, man. Barring another injury that hurts them, the only thing this Vikings team is lacking is a run game. That is really what hurts them, is their lack of running game. But even on defense, they've got Daniil Hunter, who's leading the league in sacks, which surprises me. I expected,
Unbelievable this year.
right? I expected that name to be Myles Garrett or T.J. Watt or Nick Bosa, somebody like that to be leading in sacks, not Daniil Hunter. So, yeah, I mean, especially against a quarterback that likes to hold onto the ball too long, I like Daniil Hunter to be able to get after Russell Wilson and hit him a couple times, make him uncomfortable. We have seen the Broncos looking better, which doesn't surprise me when it's a Sean Payton coach team. Everybody was questioning him at the beginning, myself included, going, what the hell? You're supposed to be a Hall of Famer. How have you not turned this team around? But then, looking back, it's like, yeah, how did we expect him to turn it around in 1 week or 3 weeks? It took a few, and they're looking better now. In Mile High, I could understand them having the Broncos favored by 1 or by 1.5, because really that 0.5 to 1.5, that feels like the odds makers are like, flip a coin.
Yeah.
It's hard to put the odds in either team's favor in that point, and I would agree with that. But giving them a full field goal, that just seems silly to me. I do think the Vikings, they're hot right now. Josh Dobbs he's playing for his career. He's been a journeyman quarterback. He's been a backup everywhere.
He's having his Geno Smith arc. He's having his Geno Smith arc.
Exactly. Only, in my opinion, better. Because he's one of the most intelligent quarterbacks we have in this league. I mean, he's a friggin' basically an astronaut, this dude. And so I think he's going to go in there and he's going to make some special things happen. We're going to see some great stats for Jordan Addison. If Justin Jefferson is back, hopefully he's back healthy and doesn't have any setbacks. Vikings win this game. Vikings beat the spread. Vikings destroy the Broncos. I don't understand how they could have the Broncos favored in this game. It makes no sense to me.
Now moving over to what is likely going to be a Super Bowl preview and kind of a Super Bowl rematch where we see the Eagles taking on the Chiefs in Kansas City. Taking a look here at the spread, KC is favored by minus 2.5 in this one, and you and I, we didn't talk about this game much, but it kind of has that feeling of this is going to be a really, really tough game to kind of figure out. I'll take the lead on this one, and I'm not confident in either of these, and pretty much the only reason that I have my picks the way that they are is solely because of the fact that one team has Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and the other team doesn't. I'm taking both the Chiefs in the money line and the spread at minus 2.5 because the Eagles, they have found ways to win this year. They really, really have. But in a game like this, yes, Jalen Hurts outperformed Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl last year, but this is this year. The Eagles are not the same team that they were last year. We've seen that all year long, and the Chiefs have fallen twice, both to the Lions and the Broncos. But if we remember that Broncos game, that was because Patrick Mahomes was dealing with the flu. He was playing in Mile High, and he just wasn't himself. That was a fluke game, in my opinion. I think the Chiefs are going to go out there and make a statement. It's going to be a highly explosive matchup between these two teams. That is why I have the Chiefs winning both on money line and spread. I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair, and I think the Chiefs are probably going to win by 5. That's my prediction. I'm thinking the Chiefs are going to win by 5.
Yeah, this is a game that when the schedule was released this year, everybody circled this game on the calendar. Because rematch of last year's Super Bowl, plus we all felt like was going to be a preview of this year's Super Bowl. Both of these teams have shown it throughout this year. Eagles, it's been a little bit messier. They're finding ways to win. They're letting teams that shouldn't be staying in the game stay in. Whereas the Chiefs have, they've gone out there and business as usual for the most part, other than, as you said, that week against the Broncos, where I imagine Patrick Mahomes was feeling like Mr. Mackey in Mile High Stadium with his head, 10 times the size as it normally is.
It's been
right. What we have seen, though, is if defenses are able to shut down Travis Kelce, then there's a shot that they can win these games. And so that is something the Eagles really have to focus on. That being said, for different reasons, I think more because it's in Arrowhead is why we're going to see the Chiefs win this game. I don't know if it's going to be by 5. I do think they'll beat the spread. You said it's 2.5.
Correct.
Yeah, I do think it'll be by a field goal, but I don't know if it'll quite be 5 points that they win by. I think it's gonna be within a field goal at the end of the game, but the Chiefs will win this one solely because it's at home. I think if we had this game in Philadelphia, I'd probably be leaning the other direction, to be honest with you, because these teams are fairly even though they have different talents at different spots.
The question that we haven't asked yet is Taylor Swift gonna be at the game?
No. No, she has a concert in Brazil, I believe, last night. And so there's no way she's flying back from Brazil to KC for tomorrow's game.
Very much, but the question had to be asked is the Swiftie gonna be there? But yeah, moving forward, that is all of our picks of the week. I think you and we should do a quick little one on Wednesday for the Thanksgiving Day games, because that's gonna be a 3-game picks. So that's why I kind of said, we'll kind of leave this one forward. But now, kind of getting through, we've made our picks, but now we got to talk about our top 5 and bottom 5 teams. Sterling, take us away.